everyone. This week we are going to focus on Chapter 4, Business Buying Behavior. Let's look at some of the learning objectives for the week. Identify ways in which business-to-business markets differ from business-to-consumer markets. Explain why business buying is accurately affected by the behavior of consumers. Describe the major categories of business buyers. Explain why finding decision makers in business markets is challenging for sellers. Explain what a buying center is, explain who the members of buying centers are, and describe the roles they play. Describe the duties of professional buyers. Describe the personal and interpersonal dynamics that affect the decisions buying centers make. Outline the stages in the B2B buying process. Explain the scorecard process of evaluating proposals. Describe the different types of B2B buying decisions and how they affect sellers. Describe the reasons why firms in the same industries are often located in the same geographic areas. Explain the effect e-commerce is having on the firms, the companies they do business with, where they are located, and the prices they charge. Outline the different types of e-commerce sites and what each type of site is used for. Explain how the ethical dilemmas B2B business markets face differ from the ethical dilemmas B2C marketers face. Outline the measures companies take to encourage their employees and executives to act in ethical ways. Let's look at some differences between B2B markets and B2C markets. One of the major differences is the number sold. The number sold to business markets is much greater than consumer markets. The size of each transaction for business customers is also much greater. The second major difference is in terms of complexity. Business products can be far more complex. They require custom building and retrofitting. The third major difference is in terms of personal selling. Because the transactions are large, personal selling is justified in B2B marketing. The agility of interactive personal selling allows changes to be made to meet conditions. Next, we're going to focus on the demand for B2B products. B2B sellers monitor consumer markets because consumer buying patterns affect their business consumers' buying behavior. Specifically, B2B sellers look at several areas of demand. B2Bs are affected by derived demand, which is demand that springs from or is derived from a secondary source other than the primary buyer of the product. When consumers change their buying habits, the companies they buy from also change their buying patterns. Fluctuating demand is another characteristic of B2B markets. A small change in demand by consumers can have a big effect throughout the chain of businesses that supply all the goods and services that produce it. B2B sellers also keep an eye on consumer buying patterns that might create joint demand. Joint demand occurs when demand for one product increases the demand for another product. Let's look at the major categories of business buyers and explain why finding decision makers in business markets is challenging for sellers. This section will discuss the types of buyers in B2B markets. Producers are companies that purchase goods and services that they transform into other products. Includes manufacturers as well as service providers. Number two category is resellers. Resellers are companies that sell goods and services produced by other firms without materially changing them. Includes wholesalers, brokers, and retailers. Walmart and Target fall into this category of buyers. The government is the biggest purchaser of goods in the United States. The federal government purchases everything imaginable from companies. It contracts for all kinds of services as well. Business to government markets, or when companies sell to local, state, and federal governments, represents a major selling opportunity even for smaller sellers. Selling to the federal government involves the following steps: registering with the Central Contractor Registry at www.ccr.gov, consulting the General Services Administration or the GSA website at www.gsa.gov to view the kinds of products the GSA helps agencies routinely buy. Aggressively market products to the agencies most likely to purchase them. And the fourth major category is institutions. Institutions include nonprofit organizations such as the American Red Cross, churches, hospitals, charitable organizations, private colleges, civic clubs, and so on. Let's look at the institutions. Institutional market include non-profit organizations, charitable organizations, private colleges, and civic clubs. They buy products and services in large quantities. Holding costs down is especially important. The lower the cost, the more people they can serve. Products and services bought are the same as used by consumers. The quantity bought is much greater. When looking at purchasing decisions in business markets, we are trying to answer the question, who makes the decision to buy? It's not always clear when dealing with business customers. Finding the key decision maker is crucial. We need to know where to start in the B2B sales, and that can be quite challenging, and it can look a little bit like a scavenger hunt. There may be several people involved in the decision-making process. There are tiers of B2B and B2C customers. Next, we are going to focus on what a buying center is, explain who the members of buying centers are and describe their roles, describe the duties of professional buyers, describe the personal and interpersonal dynamics that affect the decisions buying centers make. So buying centers, these are groups of people within organizations who make purchasing decisions. Buyers may have different titles. They can be called purchasing agents, purchasing managers, procurement officers, merchandisers, or retailers. Considering the availability of products, the reliability of the products vendors, and the technical support they can provide, studying a company's sales records and inventory level suppliers and obtaining bids from them, negotiating prices, delivery dates, and payment terms of goods and services, keeping abreast of changes in the supply and demand for goods and services that firms need. Staying informed of the largest trends and the latest trends so as to anticipate consumer buying patterns, determining the media, TV, the internet, newspapers, magazines, and so forth in which advertisements will be placed, tracking advertisements in newspapers and other media to check competitors' sales activities. Let's look at the other buying center players. We can start with the initiators. So purchasing agents do not make all the buying decisions in their companies. There are other players. And as we said, we're going to start with the initiators. The initiators are the people within the organization that first see the need for the product. Next come the users. By looking at this graph, users are the people and groups within the company that actually use the product. Then come the influencers. These are the people who may or may not use the product but have experience or expertise that can help improve the buying decision. Then we're looking at the gatekeepers. These are people who decide if and when you get access to members of the buying center. These are often people with titles such as buying assistant, personal assistant, or secretary. Then we look at the deciders. These are the people who make the final purchasing decisions. Maybe a purchasing agent for routine purchases, but for larger, more complex decisions, it could be a number of upper-level management or even the CEO. Interpersonal factors among the people making the buying decisions have an impact on the products chosen. B2B marketers are aware of these dynamics and try to influence the outcome. B2B marketing is therefore very strategic. Selling firms gather information about their customers and use that information to their advantage. Let's look at the stages in the B2B buying process and B2B buying situations. We are going to also explain the scorecard evaluation of proposals and it describes the different types of B2B buying situations and how they affect sellers. Looking at the stages in the B2B buying process, we can determine that they're similar to the stages in the B2C buying process, but there are some differences. So we always start with the need recognition. Someone recognizes that the organization has a need that can be solved by purchasing a good or service. Users often drive the stage, although others can serve the role of initiator. Then the need is described and quantified. A buying center or group of people brought together to help make buying decisions work to put some parameters around what needs to be purchased. In other words, they describe what they believe is needed, the features it should have, how much of it is needed, where, and so on. Number three, potential suppliers to search for. People involved in the buying process seek out information about the products they're looking for and the vendors that can supply them. Qualified suppliers are asked to complete responses to request for proposal, so RFP. Each vendor that makes the cut is sent a request for proposal, which is an invitation to submit a bid to supply the good or service. The RFP outlines what the vendor is able to offer in terms of its products. The proposals are evaluated and suppliers are selected. Organizations will rank parts of the proposal differently based upon their goals and the products they purchase. Price might be more important to some sellers, for others it may be follow-up service. Some companies use a scorecard approach for evaluating the suppliers. Let's look at the types of B2B buying situations. There's a straight rebuy. That means that the purchaser buys the same product in the same quantities from the same vendor, unless there's a significant change in the quality of the product or the delivery times. Post-purchase evaluations are skipped. Sellers like straight rebuys because they do not require a lot of maintenance. Modified rebuy, the same type of product as in the past, only modified or a new vendor is used. And a new buy, a firm purchases a product for the first time. Let's look at some international B2B markets. This section gives reasons why firms in the same industries are often located in the same geographic areas. Additionally, e-commerce is defined and its effect on B2B markets explained. This section also outlines the different types of e-commerce sites and their uses. International B2B markets are often distinguished by their geographic areas. Companies doing business with each other often clustered together in particular geographic areas of the country because the human and natural resources needed are located in some areas and not in others. Additionally, suppliers want to be close to their buyers, so they locate their operations nearby. Examples of clustering include Gulf Coast for oil-related industries, Silicon Valley for high-tech companies. Also, we can state an example as the Dallas corridor for high-tech companies, Wall Street for banks and financial institutions. In B2B e-commerce, we're going to focus on e-commerce or commerce conducted electronically, which makes locating near buyers less important. While it got a slow start in B2C marketing, B2B selling online has caught us. Companies have developed sophisticated e-commerce systems that allow their customers to do many things for themselves. Example is a company that needs to ship its products across country via rail can sign up online for an account with Union Pacific, reserve rail cars, and choose the route you want them to take. Account balances can be checked and rail cars can be tracked online after the goods are shipped. Some B2B websites include B2B exchanges, B2B auctions, reverse auctions, and so on and so forth. Next, we're going to look at how to resolve ethical dilemmas. B2B markets often involve offering customers free dinners, golf games, and so forth, although such purchases are illegal in some countries, such as the United States. The top 5 countries with which are notorious for bribery includes Russia, China, Mexico, India, and Italy. This concludes our chapter on business buying behavior. I hope you enjoyed the lecture and I wish you luck with the rest of the course.